Hi guys, my name is Jasper, and I'm a writer. And being a writer means I am constantly in search of inspiration to write great stories about. This time, I am planning to write a book about all the famous urban legends from all over the world. While doing my research, I came across an urban legend of the witches. This legend can be found in many countries worldwide, be it Norway, India, America, Japan, or Mexico. But one story in particular caught my attention. This story takes place on a dark, scary night in a rural area in India. The story starts with a man named Ali who was traveling due to his job. Ali loved his job. But if there was one more thing he loved more, that was photography. Whenever he went on an overnight trip, he made sure to carry his camera with him. Ali was very good at photography, and many of his pictures were displayed in exhibitions. Some were even published in esteemed magazines and newspapers. On one such weekend, Ali, who lived and worked in Mumbai, had to travel to Kerala, a state in southwest India, for some work related to his job. Ali was delighted to visit the state he hadn't visited before. So as soon as he was asked by his boss to leave, Ali took the night flight to Kerala. As he was done with his work, he decided to explore the surrounding areas and perhaps see some famous tourist spots in the vicinity. He asked the local people about the places he could explore, and most of them told him about a beautiful large waterfall that was no more than 20 kilometers away from the city he was in. The next morning, Ali took a local bus and visited the waterfall. He planned to get back to the town by evening so he could catch his night flight back to Mumbai. He reached the waterfall and the place was crowded. So many tourists had gathered to see the iconic waterfall that Ali could barely get any decent pictures. Defeated, he decided to return to the small bus stop and wait for a bus back to the town. After waiting for about an hour or so, Ali wasn't able to catch even one bus. He was tired and bored out of his mind and wanted to pee. Without thinking much about it, he stood beneath a nearby tree, hung his bag to a long nail that was sticking out of the tree, and relieved himself. He took his bag, but while taking it off the nail, he removed the nail from the tree by mistake. Not paying much attention, he dropped the nail on the ground and returned to the bus stop. Not 5 minutes later, a car stopped right in front of Ali, and the driver said, "What are you doing here, sir?" "I am stranded on this road, I believe. There is no bus going to the town, and I need to reach the town before evening. I have been waiting here for an hour." "Get in the car. I am going to the town. I can drop you off." Ali was thrilled, and without any hesitation, he got in the car. It was around afternoon now. "Thank you so much, sir, for offering me a ride. I am Ali, by the way." "Oh, no problem. I'm Victor D'Souza, and you would have not gotten a bus today anyways." "Why, sir?" asked Ali. "There is a bus strike going on in town, so the local bus service is unavailable at the moment." "Oh, that explains why I could not get a bus. Also, Ali, what brings you here?" Ali was delighted to answer the question. "I work for an IT company and work takes me all over the country. This time, I landed in Kerala and decided to do some sightseeing after work. I love photography. But this time, unfortunately, the waterfall was crowded and I couldn't get a good shot." If you have time, can I show you an offbeat spot that has a waterfall too? You can click your pictures there." "Sure," said Ali. Victor and Ali spoke about general topics during their drive when suddenly, Victor asked Ali, "Do you mind telling me what you are doing near the tree beside the bus stop where I picked you up from?" They were 2 hours into the drive now, and the sun had begun to set already. "Oh," Ali laughed sheepishly and said, "Well, I was relieving myself." You must not be aware, but any resident would not have dared go near the bus stop, let alone the tree." "Why?" "It's believed that a witch used to live on the tree many, many years ago." Ali laughed out loud. "Come on, Victor. We live in the 21st century. Do not tell me about a stupid urban legend." "You may think it's funny, but 6 people died in the village in the most horrible way. All of those people had gone near the tree." "It's a pretty isolated area. It could have been an animal attack." 6 people dying after visiting the same place does not seem like a coincidence. Everyone believes that it was the witch's doing. After the incident, a very learned priest was called by the villagers to put an end to the witch. But he wasn't able to banish the evil spirit from this world. Instead, he managed to capture the witch in the tree and shut off her from the world with the help of a long nail. Yeah, then I guess I freed the witch, Ali said, still amused. It was rapidly getting dark now. What do you mean, Ali? Victor asked, a little bit panicked. While I was peeing, I hung my bag on the nail and it fell when I took my bag off. I let it be on the ground and that's when you drove there. My God, Ali, I don't know what will happen now. It's better if we reach the town soon. Hey, watch out! Screamed Ali. Victor steered the car off the road and got out of it. Hey, are you nuts? Why did you stand in the middle of the street like this? I could have driven over you. Ali could hear Victor screaming at the woman who had stood in the middle of the road, but could not hear what the woman said to Victor. Soon, the two returned to the car, and the woman, who was dressed in white, sat in the back seat. She too wants to go to the town, but just like you, she can't due to the bus strike, said Victor. Ali turned to the woman, who was stunningly beautiful, and introduced himself. Hey, I'm Ali. I'm Mira, said the lady. Their conversation steered back to the topic of the witch and how Ali had possibly freed the witch. This is when Mira spoke. I do not think the witch can change her form. Before Ali could ask anything else, Victor informed him that the spot they spoke earlier about was just a few minutes away, and although it was dark outside now, he could at least see the spot. Ali agreed, and the three reached the said spot. Victor parked the car and told Mira to wait inside, as they both will return shortly. Victor led Ali towards the spot, which was in the woods. Hey, there is your waterfall. Victor pointed in the distance. Go ahead and smoke, and I will smoke a cigarette here. Okay, said Ali, and walked ahead with his camera, which could click pictures in the dark as well. That's when Victor got a message on his cell phone. And what the message read sucked the living soul out of Victor. He could see Ali in the distance, busy with his camera. And from behind, he heard anklets, meaning a woman was walking towards him. A few minutes later, a feminine hand landed on his shoulder, and he knew what to expect. It was Mira, she said. The police came looking for the driver of the car, so I decided to fetch you. They said they found a dead body a few kilometers away. That's when Victor showed the message to Mira, and she too looked equally terrified. Meanwhile, Ali turned with his camera hanging off his neck, and a creepy smile on his face spoke. Yes, she does change forms. A few hours later, the police found the mutilated bodies of Victor and Mira near the waterfall, and on Victor's phone was the message that had the picture of the dead body, who was none other than the real Ali.
The worst moment of my life happened on the 5th of April, 2007. The horrific events of that day are still ever present in my mind, and no amount of counseling will ever make the memories of that ghastly day go away. I've often been told by numerous counselors and therapists that sharing my tragic story might help me move on from my guilt, which is why I've decided to recount the details of that morbid day and share my tale with the world. It all began with my love for adventure. Ever since I was a kid, I've always loved to go exploring. While most other kids stayed inside playing video games or scrolling through their phones, I was out and about looking to find and discover the perfect location that I could play around in. I had basically covered my entire town when I was 17, as I had gone through abandoned homes, old parks, and creepy buildings. I enjoyed visiting them all, but one of my favorite places to explore was abandoned train tunnels. Numerous abandoned train tunnels were scattered all over my little town in Mexico. Even though I had already visited a large number of them, I always managed to find a new one every time I went out exploring. During my exploration of these abandoned railway tunnels, I would always take my GoPro camera to film everything I found. I would then take the footage I captured and upload it online. After putting all the footage I filmed onto the internet, I would also take the videos I made to school so I could show my friends. Most of my friends found the exploration of the abandoned train tunnels in our town exciting, and it wasn't long before they started to join me whenever I went exploring a new tunnel. Finding and exploring the train tunnels around our town went great at first, but little did I know that the very next abandoned train tunnel I would take my friends to would end in a horrific tragedy. It was the 5th of April 2007. I had packed my GoPro and I'd called up all my friends and told them the location of the new train tunnel I'd found, but before I made my way to the tunnel, I went to my cousin's house to convince him to join us. I wanted my cousin Rico to come with us because he had visited me the day before and I showed him the videos of all the tunnels I'd filmed. After showing him my footage, Rico told me that he didn't see the point in exploring abandoned train tunnels, and no matter how hard I tried to show him how fun it was, my cousin didn't change his views. My friends and I knew my cousin Rico was a hermit, as he loved staying indoors and doing indoor activities, so we planned to bring him along when we went exploring the next abandoned tunnel. Trying to convince Rico to join us after we'd found the new tunnel was difficult as he didn't want to do it. I tried to assure him that it was going to be a fun experience, saying, "Trust me, Rico, exploring these tunnels is going to be the best thing you'll do this weekend. It's such a great feeling to find and go through these tunnels as they are a huge part of our town's history." Rico didn't seem convinced as he said, "I don't really care about our town's history, Antonio, and besides, going to those abandoned train tunnels can be dangerous as you never know what might happen there." I then told Rico that he was just being paranoid as I'd been exploring the train tunnels since I was 3 and I was 100% sure that they weren't dangerous. It took me about 30 more minutes to finally convince him to come with me as Rico eventually agreed, saying, "I really don't want to do this and I have a really bad feeling about visiting those old tunnels, but I know this is important to you, so I'll only go this one time." I was so ecstatic that I had managed to get my cousin to come along, and after packing a small bag with torches, some bottles of water, and everything else we needed for the trip, we made our way to the tunnel's location. This particular abandoned train tunnel was located at the edge of town. It was much larger than the other tunnels we'd explored, and it had numerous graffiti paintings on its wall. It was like we had entered a portal into another world, and we kept going deeper into the tunnel just to see how far it went. I was filming everything on my GoPro camera, and we were all having fun and messing around in the tunnel. Even Rico, who'd been tense at first, was running around taking pictures. We all continued to explore the tunnel for about an hour, and when it was getting late, Rico walked up to me and said, "Okay, dude, you were right. This is pretty fun." I was just about to tell him, "I told you so," but before I could say anything, the ground began to shake. We all thought it was an earthquake, but the sound of the massive train horn that filled the tunnel made us realize that we were all standing right in front of a speeding train. I could feel my heart jump to my throat as this had never happened before. I thought the train tunnel was abandoned just like the many others we had explored in the past. We could clearly hear the train barreling down now as the train lights illuminated the tunnel. We were still very deep in the tunnel and the railway tracks were so narrow that we couldn't evade the train if we tried, so our only option was to run. We all knew that there was a high chance we weren't going to make it, but we all bolted to the exit. One of my friends, Diego, was right in front of me, and Mateo was right behind me. I couldn't see Rico at the time, and I guessed he was deeper in the tunnel running behind us. As the train got louder, I felt paralyzing fear ripple through my entire body, but I still held my GoPro camera in my hand, filming everything as I screamed the words, "Run! Run!" The train kept inching closer with every second, and it wasn't long before I could feel it right behind me. It was a very close call. Leo, Diego, and I managed to make it out just in time, as I fell on the floor with my GoPro camera right when the train zipped past me. We were all happy that we had survived, but that's when we realized that Rico wasn't with us. I remember calling out to him in the tunnel hoping he had made it out somehow, but Rico didn't respond. Terrified, I took out my torch and shone it into the train tunnel, and what I saw scarred me for the rest of my life. Numerous parts of Rico's body were all over the tunnel. His severed legs were found on the left side of the track, and his deformed head was on the right. I could tell he'd fallen on the tracks while running, and the train had cut off both his legs before crushing his skull. Most of his other body parts had been mushed together with his organs, and I couldn't make out the remaining parts of Rico's body. As I stared at Rico's scattered corpse, I was instantly filled with guilt, and I fell to my knees crying. It wasn't long after that before the authorities and our parents were called, and the news of Rico's death shocked the entire town. Due to the horrific incident, the authorities warned civilians against exploring the train tunnels in our town as there were no signs that differentiated the abandoned ones from the ones that were still in use. I couldn't look my aunt and my uncle in the eyes during Rico's funeral as I knew his death was on my hands. I had to undergo many months of counseling after the ghastly incident at the train tunnel, but no matter what my counselor told me to get over Rico's death, my guilt kept growing with every passing year. It's been nearly 17 years since this happened, and I still feel guilty to this very day. I don't know if sharing my tragic story with the world is going to help me move on from my grief, but I'm glad I had the courage to put my story out there. I'm still undergoing counseling to move on from Rico's death, but I know that no matter how many times I undergo therapy, I'll always remember the sight of Rico's disfigured corpse for the rest of my life. The story you just heard was based on the real-life case of Mr. Brian Garcia. On the 5th of April 2007, Mr. Garcia, who was an avid explorer of abandoned train tunnels, went with his friends to explore an abandoned railway tunnel located in Mexico. The group often explored numerous old tunnels that were scattered around their town in the past, but unbeknownst to Mr. Garcia and his friends, that particular train tunnel was still active and the trip almost cost them their lives. The entire ordeal was captured on Mr. Garcia's GoPro camera, and due to the dangerous incident, the authorities warned the civilians living in the town against exploring abandoned buildings or areas, as those places are sometimes dangerous and can cost someone their life.
It was April 1st, and we had the perfect prank planned. We weren't kids anymore. But April Fools still had that charm. Me and Ryan had been pulling pranks since we were 10. This year, we wanted to step it up. Ryan had the idea. He always did. He bought a cheap pig mask, like the one from Saw. The plan was simple. I'd wear the mask, pop out from behind bushes, and scare people while Ryan filmed from a hidden spot. We'd get some reactions, post it online, and get a few laughs. The park was quiet, almost too quiet. Most people were either working or at home. We saw a few joggers, a couple sitting on a bench, and one old man walking alone. He was our target. We hid near a cluster of trees. I crouched behind a bush adjusting the mask. Ryan was a few feet away, his phone ready to capture everything. We waited until the old man got closer. I jumped out at the perfect moment, letting out a guttural growl, hoping to scare the life out of him. He didn't flinch. He just stood there staring at me, his lips curling into a wide, unnatural grin. His eyes, empty yet focused, locked onto mine. I felt something cold crawl down my spine. This wasn't the reaction I expected. I stepped back instinctively, feeling a strange pressure in my chest. That smile didn't break. He didn't speak. He didn't scream. He just started walking towards me. I wasn't afraid at first. It was just an old man, but something about him made me uneasy. I took another step back. He matched it with a step forward. My breathing grew shallow. Then suddenly, he stopped following me. Instead, he turned sharply and walked towards the bushes. Towards Ryan. Ryan had always been the braver one. He thought it was just some weird old guy playing along with our prank. Hey man, relax. It's just a joke. The man didn't slow down. Ryan puffed out his chest, trying to act tough. You're not scaring anyone, dude. Just go home. The man reached into his coat and pulled out a wooden club. The kind you'd see in a medieval movie. Ryan barely had time to react before the first hit landed. The sound it made was sickening, like a heavy sack of meat hitting pavement. Ryan dropped his phone. His body crumpled, but he wasn't out yet. He tried to crawl, but the man brought the club down again. And again. I watched frozen. My mind refused to accept what I was seeing. I wanted to move, to scream, to help, but my body wouldn't listen. Man, I was freaking out. This was no prank going sideways. It was raw, brutal reality. I kept thinking, what the hell is happening? Then, the old man turned his head slowly, that grin still stretched across his face. And then, for the first time, he moved fast. The sudden burst of speed made my heart slam into my chest. I couldn't believe that this old guy who had been standing there with that insane smile could actually be that quick. I ran. The park was suddenly too big, the pathways too long. My legs burned, but I didn't dare slow down. I could hear him behind me. He wasn't sprinting, but he was keeping up all the same. I cut through the trees, jumped over benches, and pushed past anyone in my way. My apartment wasn't far. If I could just make it there and lock the door, I'd be safe. But man, every step felt like a huge mistake. I risked a glance back. He was still there, moving in a weird, almost robotic way. The flickering streetlights made the scene even more surreal. My building loomed ahead, and I sprinted inside, slammed the door shut, and bolted up the stairs. I couldn't believe this was happening. It felt like a messed up reality show with no punchline. I slammed my hand against the door, wishing it would hold him off. Deep down, I knew it wouldn't last. The whole thing was spiraling out of control, and every creak in the building made my skin crawl. I dared to look down the stairwell. He was standing there, standing at the bottom, looking up at me, smiling. That sight hit me like a ton of bricks. I froze, my mind racing with pure panic. I barely made it inside my apartment before he reached the door. The pounding started immediately. It was measured, calculated. He wasn't trying to break in. He was making sure I knew he was there. Neighbors began coming out, yelling and asking what was going on. Someone even called the cops, but the man didn't care. He just kept knocking harder, faster. I backed away, my chest heaving. My phone was dead. My only connection to Ryan was gone. Inside the apartment, everything felt off. I could hear my own ragged breathing echoing in the empty hallways. My mind was racing, trying to figure out what to do next, but all I could think about was Ryan and that brutal violence I'd just witnessed. I paced around, checking every door and window, expecting him to burst in at any moment. The silence after the knocking stopped was almost worse than the noise, like a loaded gun waiting to go off. I felt trapped, like the walls were closing in, every second stretched out, filled with dread and uncertainty. I even tried calling someone, but my phone was useless, leaving me alone with my terror. I pressed myself against the wall, aware of every creak and whisper in the building. The tension was unbearable. Every little sound made me jump, and my heart felt like it was stuck in my throat. This wasn't just a prank gone wrong. It was a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The fear was so thick you could cut it with a knife, and I just sat there paralyzed, waiting for the next awful moment. The police arrived a few minutes later. They found Ryan in the park just lying there. He was dead before I even ran. They checked the security footage. The cameras showed everything. Our prank, the old man watching us from the darkness before we even noticed him, before we even picked him as our target. He had been there the whole time, waiting. One of the officers took me to the station, asking me the same questions over and over again. I told them everything. How he chose him randomly, how he didn't react, how he killed Ryan like it meant nothing. They searched the city. No one matching his description was found. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't sleep for days. The police never found him. No fingerprints, no ID, nothing. He just disappeared. Ryan's funeral was quiet. His family was devastated. I couldn't bring myself to say anything. What could I even say? I moved out of my apartment. I stopped going outside at night. Every time I hear footsteps behind me, I freeze. Every time I see a stranger smiling for no reason, my heart stops and I just want to cry. Hey guys, we noticed that only a small portion of you are subscribed to the channel. If you really enjoy our stories, please follow us and like the video. It's free and it really helps us a lot to keep growing. We upload videos daily and interact a lot with our community, as we upload stories that you recommend us, and once a month, we upload your own stories. And to those of you who are already subscribed, we appreciate all your likes, comments, and your constant support. You are as much a part of SSG Animations as we are. And now, back to the video. Driving at night was never something I enjoyed. The road seemed endless, the monotony unbearable, and the fatigue was starting to weigh heavily on my eyelids. My girlfriend, Lauren, sat beside me, half asleep. We had decided to take a vacation at the beach, but the drive was long and exhaustion was getting the best of us. The lights of a motel by the side of the road were a relief. It wasn't a luxurious place, but at least we could sleep for a few hours before continuing. Lauren stretched and nodded when I told her we'd stay the night. I took the exit and parked in front of the reception. Upon entering, a thin man greeted us. His pale skin and tense smile made me uncomfortable right away. His movements were clumsy, as if he wasn't used to dealing with people. He handed us the key with bony hands and watched as we walked to our room. I didn't want to say anything to worry Lauren, but something about that guy unsettled me. I brushed it off. We just needed to rest. The room was small but clean. Lauren and I lay on the bed without much thought. It didn't take long for us to start kissing passionately. In the middle of everything, I slid my hands under her blouse, but just as I was about to lift it, something stopped me. It was a mechanical noise, but unmistakable. I froze. Lauren looked at me, confused. I heard it too. I thought it was my imagination. It wasn't. I worked in an electronics store. That sound was familiar. I got up from the bed and started searching the room, my heart pounding. I checked every corner, behind the television, inside the closet. When I crouched to look under the table, I saw it. A small hidden camera aimed directly at the bed. Rage surged through me. I yanked it out and smashed it against the floor. How many more do you have? Lauren covered her mouth with her hands. She tried to calm me, suggesting that maybe the camera had been there for a long time. No. The sound we heard was the lens zooming in. We were being watched at that very moment. Without thinking twice, I stormed out of the room, heading for the reception. My pulse was racing, my hands clenched into fists. As I approached the front desk, my breathing was ragged, the adrenaline already coursing through my body. I reached out and slammed my palm on the counter, expecting an immediate reaction. The desk was empty. Not a sound. The eerie silence was suffocating. I rang the service bell several times, the sharp chime echoing through the small lobby, but no one came. I wasn't going to wait. I stepped back behind the desk, looking for a back office. There was a slightly ajar door leading to the employees' quarters. My gut twisted as I pushed it open and stepped inside. Inside the room, the air was thick with dust, the space barely furnished. There was a desk, a couple of chairs, and an old television glowing in the dim light. My stomach dropped when I saw what was on the screen. It was our room. Lauren was curled up in the corner, hugging herself, her face frozen in terror. Standing near her was the thin man, holding a knife and grinning directly at the camera, as if he were part of some twisted show. For a second, my mind went blank. The panic hit me like a freight train. I turned on my heel and ran back to our room, my heart pounding like a war drum. The door wouldn't open. I threw my shoulder against and again. The wood groaned under the pressure, but it held firm. My breath was ragged, every second stretched into eternity. One more slam. The frame cracked, and with a final burst of strength, I forced the door open. The moment I stepped inside, my stomach twisted at the sight before me. The knife was on the floor. Instead, the man was now holding a gun, pressing it against Lauren's head. Move and she dies. I froze in place, my fist clenched, but I knew I couldn't react recklessly. You're going to do exactly what I say, starting with stripping down to your underwear. At first, I didn't process his words, but the barrel of the gun against Lauren's temple made it painfully clear. I hesitated for only a moment before tremblingly removing my clothes. When I was left in nothing but my boxers, he took off his shoes and took a step closer. Lick my feet. I didn't respond. Lauren's eyes were filled with terror. Do it! I swallowed hard, my entire body shaking. My face was burning with humiliation, but I bent down. His bony foot pressed against my face, his skin cold and dry. My stomach churned, but I forced myself to obey. He let out a quiet chuckle, pushing my head harder against his foot, relishing in the moment. My humiliation only seemed to excite him more. His laughter was sharp, cutting through the tense silence. I could feel the weight of his stare, his sick enjoyment of the situation. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to endure it. Every second felt like an eternity. Every breath a reminder of how powerless I was at that moment. As he reveled in my humiliation, Lauren did the unthinkable. With a swift movement, she bit down on his hand with all her strength. The man let out a pained scream, momentarily releasing his grip on the gun. Without hesitation, I lunged at him. We crashed onto the floor. I landed a punch on his face, but he fought back with desperation. My hands reached for the gun, but he was faster. He lifted it and fired. A sharp pain shot through my shoulder. The impact nearly made me collapse, but I forced myself to keep moving. We couldn't stay there. I grabbed Lauren's wrist and bolted toward the door. The sound of another gunshot rang through the air, deafening me. But we kept running. Reaching the car felt like an eternity. Every second stretching into unbearable tension. My body screamed in pain, my shoulder burning from the bullet wound, but I pushed through it. Lauren yanked the passenger door open and scrambled inside. I threw myself into the driver's seat, my hands fumbling with the keys. The moment the engine roared to life, I slammed my foot on the gas. As we sped away, I looked into the rearview mirror. The man was standing in the motel doorway, watching us. He raised the gun again, but we were already disappearing down the road. My hands trembled on the wheel. My mind raced trying to process everything. I picked up my phone and dialed the police. The line was dead. It took days to gather information. The owner of the motel was a man named Richard Holloway, with multiple harassment allegations and reports of missing persons in his history, but they never caught him. When the police arrived, the motel was empty. There were no cameras, no trace of the man. The place looked abandoned, as if no one had been there for years. Lauren and I stopped talking about it. We tried to move on, but the nights were never the same again. Even now, the sound of a camera lens adjusting still makes me shiver. It was past midnight, and the road stretched endlessly ahead, a dark ribbon cutting through the emptiness. My wife Rachel and our 2 kids were fast asleep in the back of our SUV. The long drive had drained them, and I was starting to feel the exhaustion creep in too. That's when I spotted the gas station up ahead. I pulled in and killed the engine. The neon sign buzzed weakly, casting a sickly light over the cracked pavement. Rachel stirred slightly as I unbuckled my seat. I'll get you some drinks. You guys stay here and rest. Sure, I can come with you. Don't worry, I won't take long. She sighed, eyes half closed, and nodded. I stepped out, stretching my stiff legs before heading toward the gas station doors. The inside of the store was dimly lit, with shelves half stocked and a faint smell of something stale in the air. The cashier stood behind the counter, a thin man with wide, unblinking eyes. His smile was stretched across his face like it had been painted on, but his hands trembled where they rested on the counter. Welcome. Late night drive, huh? Need something cold? Something refreshing? His voice was cheerful, but there was something off. His enthusiasm felt forced, his body language tense. I nodded, brushing off the weird vibe, and walked toward the refrigerated section. The sound of humming filled the silence. It was coming from him. A soft, tuneless melody barely audible over the hum of the refrigerators. I focused on the drinks, deciding between cola and something fruit-filled. Then, without warning, he was right in front of me. This one's the best. People always get this one. My heart nearly jumped out of my chest. He had moved without a sound, now standing way too close. His grin hadn't faded, his breath shallow and quick. Thanks, I think I'll check with my wife. I turned quickly, heading for the door. Something in me screamed that I needed to leave, but when I reached for the handle, it wouldn't budge. Locked. I turned around. The cashier stood at the far end of the store, watching. His grin never changed, but now there was something in his hand. A knife. And behind him, from under a door, a slow trickle of blood seeped onto the tiles. Hey, this is awkward, right? Seems like I did an oopsie. For a moment, my body froze. The words hung in the air, unnatural and mocking. The blood kept spreading from under the door, pooling into a thick puddle. My mind screamed at me to move, but my legs felt heavy, almost like they refused to obey. Then he moved. I bolted, knocking over a display rack as I ran. Boxes of candy scattered across the floor, rolling under shelves. His laugh echoed through the store, light and almost childlike. He wasn't rushing. He was enjoying this. I could hear his shoes crunching over the fallen debris as he walked slowly and deliberate. I grabbed a six-pack of soda cans and hurled them in his direction. One hit his shoulder with a dull thud, but he barely reacted. Instead, he grinned, wider, tilting his head like I had just done something amusing. He wiped at the blood on his cheek, licking his fingers absently as he took another step forward. I backed up, my heel slamming against the end of an aisle. My chest heaved as I struggled to breathe. There was nowhere left to go. I spotted a fire extinguisher mounted on the wall near the counter. If I could reach it. He lunged. I dove to the side, barely avoiding the downward swing of his knife. It sliced through the air where my neck had been just seconds ago. I hit the floor hard, pain jolting up my arm as I scrambled away. I spotted a metal stand near the register, some kind of advertisement display. I yanked it up and swung it wildly as he came at me again. The impact landed square in his ribs, sending him stumbling back a few steps, but his laughter never stopped. I turned and sprinted toward the front of the store. The exit was right there. If I could just... The windows. I grabbed a can from a shelf and threw it as hard as I could. It hit the glass with a dull thud and bounced off, landing uselessly on the ground. Bulletproof. His laughter rang out behind me, his breathing fast and excited. I knew you'd try that. They all do. I turned again, but he was already moving. His body slammed into mine, sending us both crashing to the floor. The impact knocked the air from my lungs, and before I could react, he was on top of me, pressing the knife toward my throat. I pushed back with all of my strength, arms trembling. But he was stronger. His grin was inches from my face, eyes gleaming with pure sadistic joy. You're fun. He pressed down harder. My arms burned with effort, my muscles screaming as I fought against him. The blade inched closer, so close I could see my own reflection in the metal. Desperation surged through me. I twisted my body, shifting my weight enough to throw him off balance. The knife grazed my shoulder as I bucked upward, knocking him away. He hit the floor with a grunt, but he was already pushing himself up. I crawled backward, my hands scrambling over the cold tile until they found something solid. A glass bottle. Without thinking, I swung it at his head. It shattered on impact, sending shards flying. He let out a choked gasp, stumbling back, clutching his bleeding face. His momentary distraction was all I needed. I forced myself up and grabbed the heaviest thing I could find, a metal cash register. With every ounce of strength left in my body, I brought it down on his head. His body hit the ground hard. His limbs twitched for a moment before going still. Blood pooled beneath him. My breath came in ragged gasps as I stood there, shaking. I wasn't sure if he was dead, but I wasn't going to find out. I stood there panting, waiting for him to move. He didn't. Blood trickled from his mouth. His neck was twisted at an unnatural angle. My hands shook as I reached into his pocket. The keys. I yanked them free and staggered toward the door. My hands fumbled with the lock, breath shallow and ragged. A sound behind me. A gurgle. A hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. His eyes were wide open, filled with something beyond pain. His grip was weak, though. He couldn't move, couldn't fight anymore. His mouth opened, gasping like a fish out of water. Then slowly, his fingers slipped away. His body stilled. I shoved the key into the lock and stumbled outside. Rachel was already out of the car running toward me. I collapsed into her arms, trembling. She asked what happened, but I couldn't find the words. I pulled out my phone, dialed 911. When the police arrived, they found the real cashier's body in the back. He had been dead for hours. The man I fought wasn't an employee, just someone who thought it would be fun to take his place. I am Jack, an urban explorer, and that day my team and I entered an old abandoned school known for its strange past. We came prepared with cameras and recorders expecting to find evidence of unexplained events rather than wild legends. The building's reputation for odd sounds and unexplained activity was our only lead. The structure showed its age in every detail: cracked walls, peeling paint, and deserted halls. There was nothing dramatic about its appearance, just a rundown building left to decay. I kept my focus on the mission and nothing more. Our crew consisted of Alex, Mark, and David. We split up to cover more ground, each determined to record anything that might explain the rumors. We were all professionals, relying on facts and evidence rather than wild assumptions. The silence of the empty corridors was only broken by our measured footsteps. Every sound was noted, every room scanned, all in a cold, matter-of-fact manner. There was no room for theatrics in our investigation. In the main hall, we picked up distinct sounds, footsteps and voices that resembled those of children at play. The noises were clear on our recorders, even if no children were visible. We noted every detail, aware that even a small discrepancy could be important. The voices were not shrill or menacing. They were calm and oddly natural. We moved from room to room, comparing the recorded sounds with the empty spaces around us. The recording showed evidence of activity that no living child should be able to produce in an abandoned building. We made our way through classrooms filled with old desks and chalkboards where echoes of laughter mingled with our own footsteps. Every room seemed to hide a secret, though nothing appeared overtly dangerous at first. Our approach remained clinical and focused solely on evidence. It was clear that the building held traces of past life, but there was no sign of immediate threat. The environment was unassuming, except for the inexplicable sounds that hinted at something beyond the ordinary. It was at that moment that we saw what we never thought we would see in life. They were children, but at the same time, they were not. Those children were not alive. They were ghosts. Their figures disappeared and appeared every second. It was like a badly filmed movie. Our team wanted to run immediately, but I stopped them. I immediately realized that there was no reason to be afraid. They were just kids. The atmosphere felt friendly, and I didn't sense a hint of evil in those kids. They were just acting like they did when they were alive. They moved through the halls as if they were simply playing, their forms barely distinct against the decaying backdrop. I recorded their movements, noting each detail in a straightforward manner. One of the children even gave a small wave as we passed. Their behavior was surprisingly normal, not aggressive or fearful. The images were clear, small figures in simple clothing, moving with an ease that belied the building's grim surroundings. The ghost children continued their activity without hiding. They roamed the halls freely, their presence recorded as routine and unforced. Every action was documented without any attempt to add a dramatic flair or poetic description. Although their behavior was benign, there was an undercurrent of unease in the facts. The recording showed regular play, yet the setting was anything but ordinary. It was a puzzling mix of friendly apparitions and a place meant for horror. Without warning, a figure appeared at the end of a long, poorly lit corridor. A disheveled man in a worn teacher's uniform stepped into view. His arrival was abrupt and changed the entire atmosphere in an instant. There was no buildup, just the cold, hard appearance of someone who did not belong. The moment he showed up, the ghost children scattered without hesitation. Their playful presence dissolved into silence, replaced by a feeling of oppressive tension. I made sure to capture every moment as this figure took center stage. David was alone in a classroom when the man moved in. In a single brutal motion, he reached out and attacked. The attack was crude, direct, and it left us with the undeniable truth that our investigation had turned deadly. I'm going to be honest. In that moment, we didn't care about our friend. We just got the urge to run as fast as we could. The ghost teacher's focus quickly shifted to me. I ran from the scene with nothing but raw instinct guiding me through the maze of corridors. Every step was measured against the threat that pursued me relentlessly. The building's layout offered little chance for a smooth escape. I sprinted through narrow hallways. I ran as fast as I could, thinking I might have lost the entity. Suddenly, something pushed me into the wall. He was right in front of me. The grip on my neck tightened and my vision blurred. My feet dangled above the floor as the ghostly teacher held me effortlessly. His face, twisted in an expression of pure malice, was inches from mine. I could see every grotesque detail. His sunken eyes, the decayed skin, the way his lips moved as if whispering something inaudible. My hands clawed at his grip, but it was like trying to break free from solid iron. My body weakened, my lungs burned, and just as the darkness threatened to swallow me, something changed. A chorus of high-pitched laughter echoed through the halls, followed by small, frantic whispers. Suddenly, tiny hands latched onto me from all directions. The ghost children clung to my arms, my legs, even my shoulders. Their little fingers pried at the teacher's grip, their whispers turning into panicked shouts. The teacher roared, a sound that was neither human nor entirely in this world. He released me with a violent jerk, and I collapsed onto the cold, dust-covered floor, gasping for air. But the children didn't stop. They swarmed the ghostly figure, pulling at his limbs, climbing over him, their movements erratic and desperate. He tried to shake them off, but they held on with unnatural strength, their whispers growing louder, overlapping an endless tide of voices speaking in a language I didn't understand. As I stumbled to my feet, I saw the teacher's form flickering like a broken film. His rage had turned into something else. Fear. He lashed out at the children, but they didn't falter. One of them, the same little girl who had waved at us earlier, turned to look at me. Her eyes, hollow and unreadable, locked onto mine for a brief second before she turned back to the teacher. And then, all at once, they were gone. The teacher, the children, the eerie voices, they disappeared as if they had never been there. The hallway was silent again, except for my own ragged breathing. But I knew better than to believe I was safe. I didn't stop to question what had happened. My instincts screamed at me to move, to get out before anything else appeared. I ran, my legs shaking, every corner of the school now feeling like a trap waiting to spring. When I reached the entrance, my heart sank. The door was shut. No, not just shut, sealed, as if it had never been an entrance at all. Panic surged through me, but I forced myself to think. There had to be another way. My eyes darted around until they landed on a shattered window at the end of the hall. Without hesitation, I ran for it. Glass sliced into my skin as I crashed through, hitting the ground outside with a painful thud. I didn't stop. I scrambled to my feet and kept running, never once looking back. I never saw my friends again. None of them made it out. Their names were never recorded. Their existence seemed to vanish along with them. No one believed my story, and eventually, I stopped telling it. Every piece of evidence we collected was lost, as if the school itself had erased all traces of our investigation. 5 years have passed since that day, but I still hear echoes of that night. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I feel small hands on my arms, tugging at me, whispering in voices that don't belong to this world. And I know, whatever happened that night, the school still remembers, and it's waiting. A couple of months ago, I decided it would be a great idea to do an internet challenge for my YouTube channel. But this time, I wanted it to be something out of the ordinary. Something that would keep my followers on the edge of their seats. This time, I would have to be in the video. After researching other successful YouTube channels, I came up with a brilliant idea of spending 24 hours straight in a supermarket. It sounded exciting and a little crazy, but it was nothing too dangerous, just what I needed for my channel. So without giving it much more thought, I packed my camera and my gear and headed to the closest supermarket to my house, a Walmart. The place was practically full when I arrived, which was good since there wasn't much attention on me. The idea of spending the whole night in an empty Walmart sounded exciting to me, so I wasted no time and started recording my introduction. Everything was going according to plan. I walked through the aisles of the Walmart, preparing the video and recording in some parts, until it was time to close. There were fewer and fewer people in the place, so I knew I had to move fast. I hid behind some coolers in the electronics section. When the guards checked to make sure no one was left, I stayed put, hiding and sleeping, just to make sure I had as much time as possible to get out for the night. As time went by, I started to fall asleep, and forgetting all the nerves of the situation and the anxiety to come out of hiding, I fell asleep. I began to explore the Walmart in the dark, recording everything I could and checking the places as much as I could. But as it usually happens in the horror stories, things started to get strange. I was walking down the halls when suddenly I noticed something strange. There was a slight tinkling of music in the air as if someone was playing a piano somewhere nearby. I found it strange, but thought maybe it was just background music from the supermarket. I didn't think much of it and continued with my challenge. However, things started to get really unsettling when I came across a shelf that appeared to have been flipped over. Products were scattered on the floor as if someone had been desperately rummaging around looking for something. I stopped in front of the chaos, trying to find a logical explanation. Could it be that some employee forgot to tidy up? Maybe they didn't see this before they left. I tried to justify it in every possible way, but I couldn't help but feel a knot in my stomach. I decided to move on, trying to stay calm and continue checking everything. But the uncomfortable feeling didn't go away. The place started to get darker. The light coming from the refrigerators and the light from my cell phone illuminated less and less. The music that used to be barely audible now echoed in my ears, filling the air with a disturbing melody. That noise, that couldn't be music. Why would they leave music if there was no one in the place? That's when I heard a noise coming from the meat aisle. A dull shuffling sound as if something heavy was slowly dragging itself across the floor. My heart began to pound as I cautiously approached the hallway. Suddenly, a flickering light came on from the meat aisle. When I reached the meat aisle, I froze. On the floor, surrounded by messy meat packages, lay a human-looking doll. It was no ordinary doll. Its glass eyes seemed to stare at me, and its sinister smile immediately made me recoil. How the hell had it gotten there? And who had put it there? I tried to keep my composure as I continued to record, but inside, I was going crazy with fear. I continued to explore the supermarket, hoping to find some rational explanation for everything that was happening. Surely there was someone here. Some security men who were spending the night guarding the place, and I didn't know it. They were playing a joke on me. There was no way there could be any other explanation. But the more I explored, the stranger things got. Cluttered shelves, strange sounds echoing through the hallways, shadows that seemed to move on their own. Finally, I decided I'd had enough. I needed to get out of there as soon as possible. I ran towards the exit. If there were any security guards, they had to enter from somewhere. The automatic doors were closed, blocking my only way out. I tried to open them with all my might, but they seemed to be hermetically sealed. I was trapped in the Walmart. Panic began to take hold of me as I frantically ran through the corridors, desperately searching for an exit, a back door, or a place that only authorized personnel could access. But every door I found was blocked or sealed. To make matters worse, strange sounds and ominous music kept haunting me, enveloping me in an atmosphere of pure terror. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, I found myself in the grocery store. The lights were still flashing, but instead of it happening only on the aisle, it started happening all over Walmart. Suddenly, I heard a laugh. A sinister, twisted laugh echoed throughout the store. I froze in terror as the laughter grew closer and closer until I finally saw its source. I stood waiting for that laughter to come around the aisle and reveal itself to me. I was terrified, but maybe this was just the end of a joke. Maybe now some security guards were going to come out and laugh me out of the place. It was the scary mannequin from before, moving like a spider. That thing that was there wasn't human. It wasn't even an animal. Its body moved as if it really was a mannequin. Its limbs broke and deformed with every movement it made. From its body, a very strange sound came out that seemed to be pre-recorded, but not even I, with the skepticism that I had, could deny that it was alive in front of me. I could see in its eyes. Their eyes were looking at me. They were analyzing me, watching every move I made as if it were a predator ready to attack me at any moment. As if it couldn't see me, I tried to move in slow motion, but this being seemed to be intelligent. It moved as slowly as I did, waiting for me to make a sudden movement so it would know how to react. As I walked slowly, I could hear the chuckling coming from inside the mannequin reproduce, as if it was something that happened automatically and I could not control. After taking a few steps in which I quickly had to think about what to do, I made a decision and took the risk to run as fast as I could. At the same time as me, the spider mannequin was running as fast as me. No, it was running even faster than me. Its forelegs were on the ground, moving quickly until it reached me. I could see the speed of this being increased more and more, but I had an advantage. Once I got to the electronics section, I managed to get into my original hiding place, between the refrigerators, and locked myself between the refrigerators as fast as I could. The mannequin knew I was there, but it was so big that it couldn't get in. The monster stood on two legs, and that's when I realized that this was no normal mannequin. It was over 6 feet tall. The monster stood behind the refrigerator, trying to get between the refrigerators, but to no avail. I spent the whole night there, locked up for hours, while that being did not give up, and did not give up for a second. I was sleepless all night until dawn, and the creature simply turned around and left. Nervous about what I was going through, I simply fell asleep. That was the only safe place I still had, and I didn't plan to leave until it was full of people. Once I woke up, everything was back to normal. I came out of the coolers when there was no one there and walked through the Walmart once again. People were walking around shopping, and everything that was destroyed in Walmart was perfectly normal. I looked for my camera in the refrigerator, but it was gone. I left Walmart as soon as possible, and I noticed that some employees were looking at me with curiosity, but no one approached me. Once I got home, I froze, not only because of everything I had experienced, but because of what I noticed once I got home. The place was completely clean, which means that in the Walmart, they knew that at night something was going on. Maybe that's why they didn't leave any door open even inside the place. But you know what was the worst thing I noticed? My camera, the one I was sure I had with me, wasn't there when I woke up. Do you know what this means? While I was sleeping, someone broke into my hiding place and removed my camera. The Walmart people saw me, probably because of the cameras, and they let me go anyway. Today, I assume that they let me leave the Walmart because they didn't know what to do with me. No one would believe me anyway. I don't know what I experienced that night. I've gotten to the point where I think I'm crazy. The only thing I know is that I never went back to that Walmart, nor will I ever go back to any other Walmart.